All right, here we are in Premiere Pro, and I'm going to just run through this example of a video that I made and show you some of the most common settings that you might want to use when you're exporting a video. It's super simple to export a video in Premiere Pro. There's just a lot of options, but don't be overwhelmed. A lot of them you're not going to even need to look at, but we'll run through them really quickly here. If you go ahead and export your video from here, what's going to happen is Premiere Pro will export the entire timeline, which if I zoom out, you can see that I have a lot of footage over here that I was using during my edit that I don't want to export with my final video. So the way that you can simply export what you want to export here is by setting in and out points. So I'm going to set an out point by hitting O on my keyboard. That gives me an out point, and what it also does is automatically gives me an endpoint here at the beginning. If you want your endpoint to be at another point, you just put your cursor where you want that endpoint to go, and you'll hit I on your keyboard, and you can see it made a new endpoint here. So if I were to export this right now, it would export from this point right here to this point right here. For this purpose, I want the entire video to be exported, so I'm just going to bring that cursor back to the beginning and hit I. Now I have my entire video selected and we are ready to go ahead and export. So I'm going to go on up to File and hit Export and click on Media. You'll see here the keyboard shortcut is Command M to also open up this window. Now that we're in our export window, I just want to run through some of these settings and show you what I most commonly use and what you might want to use as well. The format, most often you're going to use this H.264. This is most common for QuickTime and MP4 files. Go ahead and click that, and then you can see here under presets, you have a lot of different options. If your footage was shot in 4K, I would recommend either choosing YouTube 4K or the Vimeo 4K. Either one of these is fine. If you shot in HD, then you want to select the 1080p full HD version. Once you click one of those presets, it's going to go ahead and preload a lot of these settings that you want to use for you. Right here is automatically populating what my sequence was named, but you might want your final video to be named something different. So if you click on that, you can go ahead over it. It'll bring up this window. You can change what you might want to name your video, and you can also change the location where you are going to be saving that video. If you want to just export the video, you can click just this box and not the audio. Of course, if you want the audio to be exported, you want to make sure that both of these are checked. And again, this is just showing you where your video is going to be exported. Let's go on down here to our video settings. It automatically gives you the width and height based on what you put in HD or 4K. This video is 4K, so I'm going to leave these as is. If ever you get confused and these get changed, you can always click this match source here and it will automatically go back to the exact settings that your sequence was set at, which is fine in this case. I do want to make sure that my video is rendered at maximum depth. This is going to take more time to render, but it's going to be better quality, so make sure you always check this. Let's keep going down here. You're going to just leave these encoding settings as is. Leave this as is, leave this as is. Now we're going down to bitrate settings. This is one thing that I want to change. Again, this is going to take more time to render, more time to export, as the computer is going to be doing more thinking, but that's okay. We want to do VBR to pass. That means it's going to go through your video twice during the encoding and exporting process, so the quality is just going to be better. Here you can change your target bitrate and your maximum bitrate. Bitrate is simply the resolution or quality of your video. The higher you go with your bitrate here, the larger your file size is going to be. If you look down here, it's giving you an estimated file size. So if you have a certain file size that you're trying to stay under, you may want to keep an eye here. And one way you can easily kind of tweak that is by changing these target bit rates. As a rule of thumb with 4K, you want your target bitrate to be around 50 to 60. And then your maximum bitrate you can leave at about 80. And again, this is not an exact science. You can play with these numbers if you, for example, need your file size to be under a certain size, then you can bring these down and that's going to make that file size smaller. One thing you can do as you're altering these bitrate numbers, if you want to make sure that your quality is looking okay over here, you can actually scrub through to different areas in your film, and you can take a closer look at what the export is going to look like. So if you look here on the rings, you can see that right now the quality is still fine, the details are still there, and I hope you can see this in this YouTube example. I'm sure it's clearer on my screen here, but right now I see no pixelation, I see no noise. If you go over here and change your preset, and I'm going to do something drastically different so you can really see the difference here. If we were to go down to Twitter, for example, you immediately see how much more pixelated that image is. So that's showing you what your exported video is going to look like. So it's just a helpful way if you want a little preview. You can get a little glimpse of that over here, and you can scrub through your timeline down here as well. If you realize that you want to set in and out points different from what you did before, you can go ahead and change them again down here. You can set in and out points in the same way with I and O. Okay, moving right along, I'm going to keep that at 60 and 80 here on my target and maximum bitrate. Of course, if you have no concern about the file size, you can always make these bigger, and then your quality is going to be a little bit better as well. If we come down to this bottom section here, you always want to click Use Maximum Render Quality and leave the rest of these blank. And then again, you'll see your file size here, and once you're ready to go, you can either hit Q, and this is going to send your file into Media Encoder, and from there you can do your final export, or you can just simply click Export and the video will go ahead and start exporting. The one scenario when you might want to use the media encoder with the Q here is if you have multiple videos that you'd like to export while you go and do something else. You can go ahead and queue them, and then that way it's going to export multiple videos back to back. I do that a lot when I'm doing some of my stock footage. If I want to export 50 clips at one time while I go and do something else and then come back, that's a great tool that you can do here. But if you're just exporting one video, it's probably easier just to go ahead and click Export here. I'm going to go back over here to audio. Honestly, I never even touch the audio unless there's something specific going on with my video. It does a pretty good job of giving you the right settings here as long as you've clicked a common preset up here. So you can just leave all of these settings as is. Let's go back over to video. One other thing that you might find helpful is that once you've got all your settings here, if you know that you're going to be using these settings often, you can save your presets so you don't have to go through this process every single time. All you have to do is go up here to preset and click on this little icon to the right, and you can rename this 4K video settings, whatever you want to name it, and then just hit OK. And that's going to save it for you, so then next time you come in here, it's going to populate right here for you, and you can just click on it and it's going to go ahead and reset all those settings to the same way that you had them before, and you're good to go. So now that I'm happy with it, I'm just going to hit Export, and you'll see that a little window pops up here, and that's just going to give you the status of your video. It'll tell you approximately how much more time it'll take to export the video, and then when it's done, it's going to disappear, and you'll be able to find your final video wherever it is that you chose to save it up here. So pretty simple. That is about it. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to let me know, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks.